in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
I don't think their starting pitcher, changed what he was doing in any way. He was the same guy. Mixed his pitches a little bit throughout the game. Threw a little slider in there. I think we probably lost a little focus as the game went on in the middle innings and didn't have the kinds of at-bats that we aspired to. We probably could have done a better job against Barrios today.
Sorry. Oh my God, dude. He comes up with new ways, and it's credit to him because he's got to get up there 162 times, and the season's been off the rails since really like the 7th game of the season. And he's got to find new ways to say, we were horse bleep, right? But I wrote down, I think I got this phrase correct, we didn't have the types of at-bats we aspired to have. That right there is a great marketing slogan for the Twins in 2021. Or for 2022. Aspire to have better at-bats. What do you guys think?
I think when you start the game against a slappy pitcher that I've never heard of in my life, and you hit back-to-back home runs, and then for the remainder of the game, you get 2 hits, you should aspire for 2022.
Or maybe 2023.
Aspire to move on from this horse bleep embarrassment of a season where the best moment, and I went to all 4 games because I'm a sicko.
You are psych.
The best moment yesterday, I saw that, by the way. Props to you. I would not go kayaking.
My oar snapped in half and I panicked. It was the first time I've ever I was like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, I'd be
good thing I have
completely
huge hands to just do it the hard way.
No, kayaking's out for me, but I'm proud of you. But the best moment of the 4-game series, and it was justified, is Ohtani hits a home run yesterday. And by the way, so I am 1 away from my write that down prediction. He comes up the next time for his final at bat of the game, and they intentionally walk him, and they get the bleep booed out of them, and I loved it. They deserved it. Like, let me see something. Let me see Ohtani hit. People paid to see Ohtani hit. And by the way, he didn't play on Friday. So they booed him, and I thought to myself, this is completely justified.
I think the same thing happened, because I remember as a kid going to some of those, like, Ken Griffey Jr., Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, like when those guys would come to the Metrodome, early days of Interleague play, you got to see McGwire, the Cardinals, and Sosa and stuff, and like those Twins teams were so bad, and people would boo the home team, the Twins, for pitching around them. So this is Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment. We just want titles. That's all we really care about here. We just want titles. And the Twins are very far away from those titles. Now,
Reckless speculation.
maybe with some trades this week, they could bolster their chances for like 2023. But Declan's been a madman, just basically all over Score North social media, our executive producer, finding all the latest reports this morning. So I'm going to fly through a few of these, and then let's do a deep dive into the big one, the Buxton stuff and the Barrios stuff. John Morosi this morning tweets, Twins have had preliminary trade discussions on Max Kepler. The Yankees are one possible fit, given their shortage of left-handed hitting. He also tweets, Michael Pineda is drawing trade interest ahead of the deadline on Friday. He'll be a free agent after the season. His start tonight against the Tigers will be watched closely by the industry. So Michael Pineda could go one of 2 ways. If he gets shellacked tonight, I think his trade value is going to be pretty shot. Like, they'll probably still trade him. But if he pitches really well, kind of validates what he did last year. Like, they could get something for him if he pitches well tonight. So quickly, before we get to the Buxton stuff, any thoughts on Kepler and Pineda being thrown out this morning?
So if you're going to trade Kepler, and if he's going to go to the Yankees, the reality of that move is that's more of a good contract going to a team that needs this guy longer term. It's not like a short-term move. It definitely intrigues me because of the glut of outfielders that they're probably going to have. And the frustration with Max, and it's legit, is who is he? Like, he had the great 2019. He homered to lead off the game yesterday, but I mean, we have seen so many spurts of not great play. So I guess my question is this with Kepler, because this would not be a move to a contender for this year. My question is, what do the Yankees at this point, and I don't think it's a ton, have to give you back? Because the return would be important here. Like, I wouldn't just take a guy who, oh, yeah, I'll trade him. So my question when it comes to the Yankees farm system and a team that feels like it's doesn't have guys coming up right now would be, what do they have to give you for Kepler? For Pineda, I take peanuts.
What's
so, like,
funny
if you're going to...
Yeah,
I trade him a heartbeat.
What's funny about the Yankees, too, is they almost always they trade prospects all the time, right? That's how they sign players in free agency, but then they trade a ton of their prospects. And they always have someone, right? There's always someone for them to give. So they do a really good job of restocking the cupboards. And the Yankees have like a million different ways, financially, trade prospects. Like, they have a bunch of different ways where they can overcome a mediocre roster or eat a bad contract. But what they're really good at is understanding prospects are for trading oftentimes. And they're not afraid. The Cubs realize this too. It's like, yeah, okay, well, that guy might go on to a different team and become a superstar, but we can get Aroldis Chapman now. So it's a lesson to be learned. What some of these teams are going to do, the Rays with Nelson Cruz, for instance, giving up 2 of their top 15 prospects, those guys could both flame out. It's likely, I think, that those guys both flame out to some extent, the 2 pitchers that the Twins got. But it's a lesson for 2019. Be more aggressive at the trade deadline. And now the Twins are going to get a front row seat, all these other teams coming at them being aggressive. The Kepler thing's interesting. There's such a logjam in the outfield. You got to find, I think Kirilloff is a first baseman long term, but some of it depends on what happens with Buxton. Would they be more likely to keep Max Kepler if they traded Buxton? But interesting conversation. Speaking of Buxton, Ken Rosenthal over the weekend.
Reckless speculation
From The Athletic. He reports Byron Buxton has turned down now an $80 million offer over 7 years, and that the Twins and Buxton have been having these conversations the last few weeks. $70 million was the initial offer with incentives over 7 years. Buxton's camp said, guys, we can hit free agency in a year and a half. And yeah, he's been injured, but like someone's going to pay up more than that. And the Twins said, all right, it's fair enough. All right, 70 is a little low. Let's make it 80. Let's make it 80 over 7 years, according to Ken Rosenthal. My quick thought on this is if you do the math on $80 million over 7 years, it's about $11.5 million per year. Miguel Sano makes about $11.5 million, and he's not a good baseball player. Jay Happ makes about $8 million a year, and he's one of the worst starting pitchers in the American League. So if I'm Byron Buxton, I'm saying, yeah, I get it, I'm hurt, but I'm not always going to be hurt. And when I'm on the field, I'm one of the most impactful players in the entire game. Like, I was leading the MVP candidacy. I'm not going to lock in for 7 years at a base salary that's basically a notch above what Jay Happ is making right now. So it's like the Twins are they're sitting here trying to get discounts on Barrios and Buxton. And those guys are looking around the room saying, all right, we're a year and a half away from free agency. This franchise went in the tank in 2021. They haven't won a playoff game in 18 tries going back to 2004. And I can see free agency at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to explore some other places to work. Like, you can't try to get a hometown discount if your franchise is in the tank and hasn't won a playoff game since 2004. Of course those guys are going to look around the league and, wait a second, I'm in my prime right now. Look what the Padres are doing over here. God, look at the Rays. They have less budget than we do, and they're playing the World Series, right? So I don't blame Buxton or Barrios for playing hardball here and saying, guys, prove it. Are you going to prove that you're going to be relevant over the next 3 to 5 years? Prove that you're going to make the moves necessary to bolster the roster at the deadline. I'm not offended by this at all if those guys are going to play hardball. What are your guys' thoughts?
So if this is the last offer to Buxton, and we don't know, and I do not think he gets traded by Friday. I think that there's a good chance he gets traded in the winter, but I don't think he gets traded by Friday because I don't think you're going to maximize his value right now because he's hurt. We don't know exactly when he's coming back. If this is the last offer, though, if they said, all right, we'll go 7 years, $80 million, sign on the dotted line, that offer was made for one reason, to say we made one. that offer, he was never going to accept that. Now, a guy with his talent I don't care how much he's hurt. Now, if you came up with an incentive-laden contract that landed at 95 base and let's say got you to 110 with incentives of if you play a lot, you get a lot more, I think you're at least talking. But when you stop at 80, you are doing that to prove that you made an offer. Also, unless we're proven wrong, here's the thing that bothers me about this entire thing and where it sort of stinks. If you're the Twins, I think you say, okay, we have a situation where we now make decent revenue. Our TV contract's not great, but it's good, and it's coming up, so we're going to have a new one fairly soon. We're not drawing like we'd like, but we still have a nice ballpark, and we still do draw. I think they announced 22 or 23 on Sunday, and they're a last-place team. That's actually not bad.
That's not terrible.
So where this absolutely stinks is you have to at least give me the idea that you have picked Barrios or Buxton and said, we're going to keep one. Like we're going to have to pick. So I totally get them. I would like them to sign both, but I totally get the approach from a business standpoint of saying, this is going to be tough, and they're turning down our offers, and we have tried. And I don't blame them for starting off a few years ago with the, hey, here's a team-friendly contract that's going to lock you up and reward you with a lot of money, but you still are not going to be a free agent for quite some time. So sign this. And they're like, no, I don't want to. And now as we creep closer to free agency, there has to be some type of backup plan of, okay, oh my God, they're both going to leave. We have to keep one. So let's go to plan B, which is we have picked the one that we want to keep. And seemingly right now we are in a situation where it's possible they'll trade Barrios by Friday and Buxton in the winter and lose both. And they should not be for 1 second
on fire if that
let
happens.
off the hook. And that one, it's cliche to say cheap poll ads, but that one goes all the way up the food chain. That one deserves a discussion of the commitment that ownership has. It's one thing to rip them for not going out and signing Bryce Harper. Okay, they weren't going to. Totally get that. I don't know if I'm defending them on that, but I'm certainly not ripping them for the fact that there are big-name guys out there who go elsewhere. But when you develop the talent and then you allow them both to walk, and keep in mind, too, what we're not talking about is Sano's a bust. So the hat trick of players who are supposed to lead this team into the next generation of Twins baseball are bust, potential trade by Friday and Barrios, and Buxton, I think, probably gets traded at the rate we're going this winter. They deserve everything they get from their critics for that.
Reckless speculation.
All right, question off that in a second here. Our Twins discussions throughout the year, Talking Twins, presented by Dennis Kirk and DennisKirk.com. There have been times, I'm sure, where Dennis Kirk's like, boy, what did we get ourselves into? Just sponsoring these daily Twins conversations. They're 16 games below 500. Mm-hmm. But they're here, like, if you've bailed and you just want to enjoy the summer weather, get out for a ride, Dennis Kirk has you covered. Whether it's Harleys, Metro Cruiser, sport bikes, they are the leader when it comes to parts and accessories. 160,000 parts and accessories in stock, clothing and helmets as well at DennisKirk.com. If you order by 8 p.m., they ship the same day and shipping is free for orders over $89. When the open road calls, head to DennisKirk.com. We'll start with Declan here. If you had to choose one, let's say Judd's right and that, like, all right, well, it'd be nice to keep both these guys, Barrios and Buxton, but God, like, you just can't risk. Like, the time to strike on these trades, especially Barrios, is in the next 4 days because someone's going to pay you more in prospect capital for 2 potential playoff runs with Barrios than just one if you wait till the offseason. So if you had to go all in on either Barrios or Buxton on a multi-year contract and let the other one go, who are you picking?
I'm keeping Byron Buxton and I'm trading Jose Berrios. I just think you're going to get more for Jose, and in general, Buxton makes a bigger impact when he's on the field. I mean, if you want to make the case that Buxton isn't on the field every day, well, I hate to be this semantics person. Berrios pitches every 5th day. He's only playing a game every 5th day. So I know that's not the exact same apples and oranges comparison, but Barrios isn't out there every day either. And Buxton, when he's been on the field, has been that guy. And even though the Twins, if they're punting on Barrios and that puts a big hole in your rotation, I just know that this team is not ready to compete in 2022. So if we have some prospects against the wall that we can throw in, like Bailey Ober into the rotation next season, or maybe even this Joe Ryan kid who they got from the Nelson Cruz trade, and you still find, the supplements. I know J.A. Happ's been a disaster, but you can always find a fifth starter on the open market. I can fill out that rotation pretty easily. And I know if I'm not ready to compete, why am I giving big money to an ace when I know I'm 2 years away from contending? And some team's going to give me some significant prospects for Jose Berrios. So I would keep Byron Buxton, and I would move Jose Berrios in a heartbeat.
I'd like to say that I would keep Barrios because he is the ace. No matter what you think of him, the ace of your staff. But I'm with Declan here. I mean, Byron Buxton is such a unique talent. And if I trade Barrios and get pitching back, there's a chance that I can actually replace him. And hopefully, if we believe that Falvey's going to do what we thought, at some point in time, this pitching's going to start to arrive, one would think or hope, right? So if Buxton was not such a unique, no, I'm concerned too. But if Byron Buxton was not such a unique damn talent, and I know that the speed is going to start to decline here at some point soon, but that doesn't make him a bad player. He started to hit for power. I still think a slightly slower Buxton in center for the next few years is going to be an elite player out there because he's fantastic. Speed helps a lot, but he also is just damn good. Ordinarily, I would disagree with Dex, but in the case of Buxton, I'm going no.
Just in general.
Just a
blanket
overall,
statement. Ordinarily, I would
I
just
ordinarily when it comes to hockey or basketball or football, ordinarily on this conversation, I would disagree with Declan. But in this case, I just can't let Buxton walk. It's too enticing if we can ever get him to a point where, let's say he plays 120 games consistently. It's a really weird conundrum and a sad statement, but that's where I'd land. You?
I agree. It would be Buxton for me. And also go back and listen to some of these or read some of these Jose Berrios quotes when he talked to Phil Miller from the Star Tribune. And is there something getting lost a little bit in translation? Sometimes it's hard to tell. But he sounds like a guy to me that just wants to explore other options in a year and a half.
Yep.
And if that's the case, let's start to go down that road. Okay. Well, yeah, but you can still re-sign him potentially if you get to the offseason, have more discussions. But even then, after he hits free agency, you can still. If this dude hits free agency, what are the chances based on everything we know about the Twins and their finances compared to the Yankees and the Dodgers and the top 5 or 6 biggest markets in the country? What are the chances the Twins really win an open bidding war in free agency for Jose Berrios? 0, right? So if he's telling you right now, which he is, he's telling you right now, we've worked, verbatim, his quotes are, we, meaning him and his family and agency, have worked for 7 years to get to this point, free agency, so that we can explore our options. Then you almost have no choice unless you thought that you had a real shot to contend in 2022 and you just rather roll the dice and let the cards play out in free agency because you can win the World Series in 2022. But look at your rotation. This isn't the makings of a team. Cruz is gone. He's your best hitter. He's gone. Who are your other 4 starters? Declan started to lay some of them out. Is Bailey Ober your Game 2 playoff starter? This is not a playoff team next year. So Barrios has, thankfully, basically given you all the information you need. He's not being a D about it. He's just telling you, I kind of want to go play somewhere else in a year and a half. There's another layer to this that we're never going to fully be able to, I think, unpack or peel back. In that I think Barrios has been unhappy with the treatment of him in some of these games, right? Now, have they left him in sometimes and he gets shelled in the 7th inning a couple starts ago? Yes. But taking him out after 5 innings of a playoff game in which he's dominating, right? Stuff like that where it's what are you guys doing? I want to maximize my potential. Not that he's always been great late in the season, too. It goes both ways. On the Buxton front, they deliberately held him out of September a couple years back to manipulate his service time to get the extra 7th year of team control. And so Byron Buxton's thinking, guy, I could have become a free agent after 2021 if you guys hadn't manipulated my service time. Pay up.
And he was
right,
bitter.
and he was not happy about that.
Yes.
So there's been some fraying of that relationship, and Barrios just doesn't sound like he's happy with the whole thing. And those things aren't necessarily like cheap ownership things. Those are just front office things that have popped up the last couple of years.
And I guess my question is, what's the message to your fan base, and what is the look if you are prepared to allow them both to walk or trade them both? Like, to me, that's just not acceptable. At that point in time, they deserve to be ripped as much as you possibly can. And I will jump to the side of the anti-Twins bandwagon. If you are going to take two guys who we really saw as the future of this club, and certainly saw at least one of them being signed to a contract that would take that player well into his 30s, and they're both gone. And you don't tell me, well, we got these guys coming up. I don't care. You need to keep one. And when Sano completely busts, like, this is a disaster at that point. I don't care who's around the corner. This is a disaster. If Byron Buxton is a Dodger, Jose Berrios is with the Braves, and Sano is playing for the Mexico City Reds, that's a disaster. And by the way, he might not be good there either. I don't know, but like, you can't gloss over that. There can't be a conversation about, well, yeah, it's too bad, bad luck. No, yeah. It's a decision.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. They just lost Cruz, and yeah, you could re-sign Cruz. He's also 41, so like the Nelson Cruz era is pretty much over. Like, even if you re-sign him at some point,
and he belongs on a good team too.
Yeah, if he had choices this offseason, when he re-signed back with the Twins for 2020, it was a one-year deal, right? For 2021, he did it under the impression that we're going to get the band back together and we're going to win a World Series here. He wants to win a World Series. I don't think he would re-sign with the Twins going into next year because they wouldn't be at all favored to win the World Series. So Nelson Cruz is gone. If you trade Barrios and Buxton at any point between now and the start of the 2022 season, you're basically entering a multi-year rebuild because your rotation starts from zero. Mm-hmm. I would think that you would also have traded Taylor Rogers if that's the case. Like, if you're trading Barrios and Buxton, there's no reason to also not trade Taylor Rogers. You don't have a center fielder. Royce Lewis is going to need at least a half year of minor leagues before he's ready to come up. Like, you're in a multi-year rebuild.
Hold on a second.
If you decide
here.
to let those guys go
I'd like to
somewhere
correct you. Jake Cave came back from the IL from the 60-day yesterday and started in center field, okay? So for you to say you don't have a center fielder, Diving Jake is back.
What's hilarious is he made his return to the lineup the same day that Lamont Wade Jr. hit 2 missile home runs for the San Francisco Giants. Lamont Wade Jr. has turned into like this really, really good player. And this was a first guess. Wait a second. He takes great at-bats. He gets on base.
Smart
He's pretty
player.
young. He can play all 3 outfield positions, pretty well. I don't feel like we've seen enough of Jake Cave to last a lifetime. And Lamont Wade Jr. is batting leadoff for the team with the best record in all of baseball right now. So,
well, and not that we discussed this at the time because we certainly didn't, but throw on top of that the cherry on top, Akil Baddoo. You couldn't find a place on your 40-man for him. Like, this was not he has to make the big league roster. This was a 40-man roster transaction of, okay, you know what? We'll keep him. You couldn't find a place. And look, it's not like you didn't get a great look at the kid. Like, what did you not see here? And this is not our job. Dude. It's not our job to know this. This is a guy in your system, Derek Falvey and Thad Levine, that how do you miss that completely?
It's really bad. On the Lamont Wade Jr. thing, because I tweeted out the highlight clips of his home runs yesterday, and there's I would say most people are understanding of how big of a botch this is. They traded him for Sean Anderson. He's been on 3 teams this year with a 9.45 earned run average. He's just an arm that you can find anywhere on the scrap heap, right? The Twins DFA'd him basically 2 months into the season, right? They DFA'd him in early June. But the pushback is, well, I mean, the Twins were pretty loaded on the roster with outfielders, and like, who would have seen this coming? What do you mean? Like, the front office, their literal job is to see that coming, right? Like, their job is to see which players are going to pan out and which ones aren't. And every front office has botches. So it's not, you can't just sit here and say, oh, look at that one big mistake. They're all going to whiff on draft picks. They're all going to whiff on trades once in a while. When you're making 100 moves a year with waiver claims and draft picks and stuff, like, you're going to whiff on some of them. I think they whiffed on every notable move going back to the beginning of the offseason, November 2020. Every free agent has been mostly a whiff, right? Colomé, Happ, Shoemaker, even Robles is just like Robles gets out there and just walks the plank every single time. He's probably the best of those four.
Yep.
Lamont Wade for Sean Anderson, Akil Baddoo being left off the 40-man roster, exposed to the Rule 5 draft. I mean, it is a disaster what they've done going back to. I think I was so high on this front office for 4 years, and it's hard to reconcile the last 6 to 8 months and just give them a free pass and say, all right, well, it was a hiccup of a year. We'll see what happens. This hiccup of a year essentially closed your winning window, and you might have to go into a rebuild next year.
And you know what I would like to do just quickly here is I think that we can now, because there's a pattern here too that goes way back, we can introduce prior bad acts. It's a very law and order like thing. I'd like to introduce prior bad acts because at first we were like, well, no, it's just a tough thing. Too bad. But I would like to throw on top now of what you just talked about, Phil, some more things that in retrospect raise eyebrows.
Sam Dyson,
you traded for a guy who was hurt. And like, I remember we had, I think Levine on or Falvey, and I said, are you going to like pursue something here compensatory? Like you got an injured player, which by the way is sort of your fault. Or you were completely lied to and bamboozled. And he basically said, we don't like to talk about that. But the answer was no. But at the time, I'm like, okay, that was really bad luck. That's too bad. Now I'm like, what didn't you like? Where's the report that said, one, he's a terrible freaking guy. Like the whole cat thing was BS. He abused the cat and I believe his girlfriend. And second of all, how do you not know that he showed up as damaged goods? Because he did. The other one, Homer Bailey. Like, what did Homer Bailey give you? He broke down. At least the Rich Hill move I get. Like, I know he's hurt a lot, but I sort of liked it still.
He's a track record guy. He's got,
but Homer Bailey he can go right on the pile of J Happ now and the shoe as far as these cheap guys that you try and bring in and resuscitate because you've got the secret sauce, but you don't. So I think the prior bad acts now can be introduced into the conversation of a lot of questionable things this team's doing.
I'll give you another one. Miguel Sano's contract extension.
Yep.
They signed him. When did Penn hit paper on that? Was it before last season?
No.
Was it coming off 2019?
I think it was coming into 2019. Kepler and Polanco were that, they were a package deal. They signed their contracts, and I think Sano signed either shortly before or shortly after them, going into 2019. He didn't sign that contract going into 2020. I'm pretty sure on that.
Contract extension.
January 11th of 2020.
Oh, look at that.
All right, so they signed. Again. So this was after his big 2019, right? So he has the.
Yep.
2018 was kind of a disaster. He has the breakout 2019, and they'd seen enough, right? All right, we trust him. He's gonna maintain his physique. He's gonna be really one of the leaders of this team. We're giving him $10+ million. We're gonna give him 8 figures a year. He's gonna be one of the highest paid players on this team now. Literally, the dude hits, like, he signs that contract. He's been one of the worst everyday players in baseball the last 2 years. So another one. You could argue that the Kepler contract too. I think Polanco has kind of figured it out, but Kepler's been hitting better lately. I don't know. The whole thing, like almost everything the last couple of years just feels off and weird. And what are you doing? So with that backdrop, how confident are you that they're going to make the right moves this week? That's another question, right?
I'm not super confident. I'm just not.
So, anyways, well, they could use some insurance if they
they could.
If they plan to have some bad things happen this week. And I don't know if Federated can help them, but Federated can probably help your business. Find a full list of industries Federated protects at federatedinsurance.com. Federated's been around for over 100 years, based in Owatonna, and they specialize in resources and tools that help protect your business from risks, from either unforeseen things or maybe things that you can see down the pipeline that you just need help managing. Check out federatedinsurance.com to find out more information. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours.